Welcome back to my channel, where we're taking a first look at Kurzgesagt's new game, Starbirds. I'll be showing some of the gameplay and mechanics, and giving some of my thoughts and opinions about the game. Immediately obvious is the Kurzgesagt visual style and references that have clearly carried over very well from their YouTube channel. Their visual style is fresh and colourful and vibrant and new, unless you've been watching Kurzgesagt videos for years. Like most demos, it probably will be fairly close to what the game will be like at release. Although it is possible they will change everything that I actually have an opinion about. There's a bit of a story too. You are put in the claws of a bird. The captain bird of a spaceship, of course. And here you are. Already having discovered one of the most vital elements, coffee. One thing that it does lack compared to the Kurzgesagt YouTube channel is something that possibly they might add, and that is voice acting. There are a couple of squawks from the birds, but the Kurzgesagt YouTube channel's voice actor is one of the most iconic parts of it. So while they have translated the Kurzgesagt visuals very well, and the visual style very well, the fact that they are lacking any voice acting or narration was a bit disappointing for me. Obviously, voicing an entire game with many voice lines is probably a lot more work than just voicing a video, but still, it would have been very interesting to have at least some voice acting, perhaps just in the tutorial. Perhaps just in the story, and of course it's always possible that that will be added, and that would be a great addition to this. Anyway, the basic game mechanics are fairly simple. Asteroids contain valuable minerals and other things, and your aim, generally speaking, is to extract them and refine them into useful materials. This is something that you see in many games of this genre. There is very casual and simplistic base building, production, simulation, and like most games that start out like this, it is interesting to explore different asteroids, different locations, and figure out the pipeline to get resources from inside an asteroid to your ship. Many games like this rely on the music and the background noise and sound design to really help create the atmosphere that they are looking for. and Skybirds is no exception. They've clearly taken the time to create a science fiction sounding soundtrack, both minimalist and calming, which I think works very well. It is rewarding to go through those first steps and figure out how all the different elements in different asteroids can interact and can be combined to make the materials you need to create more materials and to upgrade your space station or your spaceship. I will say that for those interested in a little more in-depth science, you might be a little bit disappointed. Kurzgesagt does have a reputation for doing very in-depth, informative videos which teach people about science and the universe. In this case, there is some potential for learning here, of course, as with any game really, but I would say that this one doesn't do too much more than just the basics. For example, you can refine water into oxygen. Oxygen is one of the most abundant elements in the Earth's crust, and there's no shortage of it on the moon and throughout the universe. There are plenty of asteroids with oxygen in them. Of course, they are almost all part of other compounds with other elements, oxides, and usually you need to use different processes to get out the breathable oxygen that presumably you need. Electrolysis, for example, is a well-known process to get oxygen. However, if you want to learn about any of that, this game doesn't really provide any more information, except that you can use a building to change water into oxygen. Another example is quartz. Quartz is another mineral, quite uncommon in asteroids, so in this game you can make it. You can make it from silicon and water. Again, if you think the process is interesting, how does that work? How can you make quartz from silicon and water? It's a process called hydrothermal precipitation. Well, it's one of the processes that can be used to make quartz. You can take silica-rich water and put that at high pressure and high temperature, and quartz can form from that. The game, again, won't really go into any detail about how it works though. It also doesn't really make sense that you can separate a magic rock from an asteroid using quartz, but you know, you have to make some allowances for games. Whatever makes a good story. I just want to point out that so far, based on this demo, it doesn't look like you're going to be getting that much teaching and learning from the game. Some of these things seem almost like magic, a random floating rock. And, you know, it looks like the birds can track where the rock came from, using presumably magic. It's not very clear. With a brand like Kurzgesagt, there probably is room for a more casual base building, production and simulation game. It will have to be careful balancing the evolving complexity of the game with the slightly more simplistic and friendly design. Compared to some similar games, like Satisfactory being the obvious one, the vibe is definitely a bit more cozy, a little more simplistic. And if they can balance that with the natural evolving complexity that will definitely come with this kind of game, it may well become quite popular. Personally, I would love to see a bit more of a focus on the starship or base. The asteroids and system already feel a little bit cramped to me, and I think having some kind of incremental upgrades for your spaceship, something that would persist throughout your gameplay, would really help make you feel more connected with what you're doing and what you're building. Throughout the demo, there didn't really seem like much of a goal. While you extract resources and money and research points, they don't feel particularly valuable, and mostly they just feed into making more research points and more coins and more currency and more resources, which is nice in its own way, but it doesn't really have much more meaning. Perhaps an expansion of the story that will obviously come with the full game will be that driver, the thing that gives you something to push towards. But the more systems like that, the better. I'm also confident that there are some more stats nerds out there who would be interested in seeing a bit more detail about production numbers, what each asteroid is producing and consuming, how efficient buildings are. Potentially, these things will also be added, but it is an interesting line that they are trying to walk, being fairly simplistic, cozy and relaxing, while hopefully still containing all the systems and tech and UI needed for people who want to optimize to do so. Those have been my thoughts on Starbirds. The Kurzgesagt name alone might be able to make it successful, but it also contains lots of promising elements that will hopefully come together to make something relaxing and engaging. We'll see soon enough. If you liked this video, you can subscribe for more like this, and I will see you later.